we met 6 years ago in Berlin, and we've been part of the U training. What the U theory by Otto Scharmer done anything to you?
Yes, that training changed my life on a personal and a professional level. And the day after I left you and Tina, I was driving into work crying my eyes out because I knew what I was about to do, which was to put all my projects in the trash. Because I was working on the future. And what I didn't realize that the future is already there. You just have to work out how you can tune in to the future, which is what we learned together. And I therefore integrated that into the heart of everything I'm doing.
Right. And then where did you drive to at that moment? You said I was driving to my work. Where did you work then?
Yeah, I was working for a big sports retailer called Decathlon at the time. And I had this great role, which was vision leader, which sounds very
fancy.
Not humble. Yeah, I agree. But the role of the vision leader was not to have the vision. The role of the vision leader was to create the spaces necessary for every single individual in the company, that's 105,000 people, to have a safe space where they could share their dreams.
Right.
So I put that on LinkedIn, Dreamweaver. I quickly took it off because it wasn't understood.
Beautiful, beautiful. What do you consider? After this, I'm leaving you to Zorit. She will roast you, but okay.
Wait.
Tell me, what was your one best thing that you think you left the Decathlon with in your role of a vision leader?
It's all about creating the right environment where if you go in, it's easy to organize a conference with thousands of people. And if you want people to share their dreams, to show you who they are, to really tell you what they believe, then you have to create the right conditions for that. And that's what I'm most proud of. You can't just walk in and say, tell me your dreams, tell me your dreams. It doesn't work like that. People have to feel in total trust and confidence to be able to do that. And that's what, do you want some help? And that's what we did. And it was beautiful.
Beautiful.
And not only did we do it with employees, we did it with customers as well.
And it worked for Decathlon.
It did at the time, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to leave you. I will actually very curiously observe what will happen.
Yeah, me too. Hello.
Hello. My name is Zoka Sorica. Разкажа се. За мен останало много малко да кажем. I heard you left Decathlon.
I did.
Cozy job in a corporate environment. It was a middle-life crisis or what?
My wife, ex-wife now asked me that too. I guess I'm one of those 44% that
44, yeah.
You talked about that earlier. It was a fantastic job, very comfortable, big team, potential. I just felt a disalignment between what was on the wall, what we were talking about, and what we know
and what
to
we
be
are
what's
living.
coming.
Yeah.
The retail industry has to undergo radical change, not incremental change. And that's,
I'm working in retail.
yeah, good luck. Good luck. So in retail, global supply chains, we know they're crumbling. And I could see that, and you present that. And it's also an age thing. I'm 49 soon. If it was 10 years ago, I may have stayed, but I don't feel that that's where I should be. I don't know if I made the right decision, but I made a decision in uncertain times for alignment. So what I'm thinking, saying, feeling, and walking is the same path.
You're a consultant in Ferme Lecoq, right?
I am.
As I understood, yeah. Tell me more about the premise of this regenerative leadership and economy.
I will be doing that. I will be doing that right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll.
So we don't. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
But if I don't answer your question, come back to me.
Okay. I will.
Thank you. There we go. Brilliant. So that was the couple of days after I met Neshko and Tina. You can see it's a while ago because I had some hair over there. Happy. What's important about that photo is that guy there. That's the CEO of Decathlon at the time, who gave me that room that I needed to lead that team of crazy people, talking about vision. Now, I'm going to talk about regenerative leadership this morning. It might be new to some of you, but actually it's very, very old because we used to operate like this for some time. Working in vision today in 2025, you could save yourself 6 months. That's the answer. We just don't really know what's going on. It's a difficult time to predict anything. We live in this VUCA world. You hear about that? VUCA? Does that mean something to you? A world which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We've been talking VUCA for 30 years already. Actually, today there's a new acronym, which is BANI, B-A-N-I, for brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. It doesn't sound good, does it, to open a keynote with that? Hi. I prefer this acronym for VUCA. We need a vision to understand what's going on today in order to have the courage to adapt. I like that. And that's what I'm trying to work on. We need a vision to understand what's going on, to have the courage to adapt. Courage to adapt. We'll come back to that one. So I'm working in the world of tomorrow, what that could be. And I become obsessed with a question, which is this one. In this uncertain world, is there a system that has always been there, that has never crumbled and never failed? And there is one, and it wasn't made by man. And it's called the living system. And we could call that nature, if you like. And nature has a lot to tell us. Nature is decentralized by nature. Nature has no waste. Nature is interdependent, where every single living organism plays a role in order for everything to thrive, which is interesting. Nature operates under optimization. Photosynthesis is only efficient to 1%. Tully, you would not invest in photosynthesis, but it's necessary to survive. It's 1%. And the fact that nature operates at sub-optimization means that it can act with agility and it can handle uncertainty. So some of the things I might say may appear strange to you, but we can transpose them to the business world. Are you still with me? Good, thank you, thank you. So let's have a look. So we have regenerative businesses, which is a goal right now. There's no regenerative business. There's plenty of businesses which are on this journey. And if companies like Mercedes-Benz and Renault are looking at this, it's super important and very relevant to our subject today about keeping talent in the Balkans. Regenerative businesses are rooted in the wisdom of life, and they aim to create conditions which are conducive for life to thrive. What is regenerative leadership? That is a style of leadership which is inspired from the wisdom of nature. And a good question we can ask everyone in this room is, how can I as a leader create the conditions conducive for life to thrive? Okay, let's move on. So why is this so important today? Well, it's been important for some time. I mean, I'm not going to give you a keynote speech on science and data, but we do have to understand that we are heading towards a planet which is non-habitable, non-livable. And if that's the case, then what's the point in actually having a business if we can't support the conditions for life to thrive? Data and science, super important. The second one is stress, and Nimet referred to this just before. Stress is rife. This is very macroeconomic. This is the world over. Systems are at the point of collapse and fracture. Things are not going well. people are not doing well. Young people in the UK, where I'm from, we have rates of loneliness, depression, anxiety, and suicide that we've never seen. It's going on in Japan. It's going on all over the place. Systems are at a point of fracture, whether they be governmental, economic, health. They're barely standing up on their own feet. They're crying out to break down. And of course, all of this is putting a pressure on the living system, the environment, which is there to help us thrive and live. So this is a vicious circle. And it's important that we talk about stress, and important that we talk about our capacity to deal with that, but also to acknowledge that we're part of the problem. And this is one of the reasons we need regenerative leadership. So I realize that that's not fun for a presentation, but it's super important. I don't believe that normal sustainability is enough. It's not enough. It's not going to cut it. Sustainability is vital, but it's just a step towards something else. I worked in sustainability for years. I promoted it. I lobbied for it. I implemented it. I deployed it, and I watched it fail day after day because it's just not compatible with economic systems. In the middle, you have sustainable. These are the 5 conventional business models. Right, so right on the left, you have conventional. That's a business which is just going to do the bare minimum to survive when it comes to CSR. They're still going to be exploiting and generating the living systems. Then you have green companies who acknowledge that, yes, we need to do a little bit better. So we're going to reduce our carbon emissions and maybe do a bit of social. Good. It's a way to get somewhere. As we head towards net zero, the middle, sustainable, where we're adding no extra harm. I used to think that sustainable was the end game. That was it. But it's not, because that's just a way of paying back our ecological debt, which we owe to the living system. But there is steps afterwards. The first one is restorative. How can we start restoring the living system? And when I say living system, it's not just about trees and grass. We are talking about people. We are part of a living system. As we head towards regenerative, living in symbiosis of the living system with order, in order for everything to thrive. And this Gen Z you talk about, where I'm from, this is becoming more and more of a big deal. It's important to consider that this is relatively new when we talk about the anthropological, we talk about Homo sapiens, okay? Things only started to go wrong only 300 years ago. Yeah, not even. When we had the Industrial Revolution, right? When we had machines that could do stuff and that could work all the time. So we would invent efficiency, human resources as a result of the Industrial Revolution. But before that, we did live in harmony with the living systems. So this isn't very far away, but we've forgotten it, generally. We've forgotten it. But it's not far enough away that we can't get back to it. Okay. It's called the story of separation, because we have to remember that we are part of the living system. Tina, you talked about people-centered. I agree, but people are part of living systems. So regenerative leadership is living system-centered. We're part of life. The story of separation has led us to this point very quickly. iPhone 1 was launched in 2007. By 2012, everyone went mobile and everybody had a tactile screen in their pocket, which gave you access to the entire knowledge of what we can have, right, in your pocket. But it's also led to being more separated from the living system, from each other, and even from ourselves. Ironically, we look for the answers in the funnel still today. Principles of nature, 7th generation thinking, great example with the Sagrada Familia. You'll tell me, but I don't think there's any architect of any cathedral that ever saw the cathedral finished. We need to get back to this. How is the decision you will make today going to impact the 7th generation? You can go to the forest and scream at the oak tree to grow faster. It's not going to. It will be in 4 generations you'll be able to benefit from its full splendor. This is a concrete example of a company. His name is Galahad Clark, from a British shoe company called Clark's. Some of you may know that company. 7th generation. And what they've done at Vivo Barefoot is to imagine a way to get people closer to the earth, to feel part of the natural living system. But in 2020, their culture was toxic. People were leaving left, right, and center. So they began a journey of regenerative leadership. And that began with 1 year of deep listening, just deep listening to everyone in the company. And that happens in a forest. And this happened in a sacred forest in England called Springwood. So that lasted for a year. And what did they do? Well, they realized that if they wanted to attract and keep the best talent, they would have to review their materials they were using. So instead of using virgin plastics, they switched to a bio-insourced polymer. They would invest in regenerative agriculture because they're making leather. And they realized that young people are concerned with animal welfare today. They saw that these shoes are expensive, by the way. Children, they outgrow their shoes in 6 months. So they started renting them instead of selling them, which led to the introduction of a repair service, which is another part of the economy, which they gave them more value. And finally, they created a community of people all around the world who wanted to be closer to the living systems. And as David said very clearly this morning, this is not a charity. They did 36% more profitability when they implemented all that, and their happiness quotas went through the roof. People are fighting to work for this company today. And Galahad Clark says, we have built a modern way of life on the conviction that we are separated from nature, but the truth is we are nature. That makes for a very pretty slide, very easy to say, harder to implement, but we can do that. Nature has 4 seasons. You all know this, you all went to school and you live them. But do we really live the 4 seasons? I would suggest that the human race today only lives 2 seasons. We are stuck in a permanent situation of spring and summer. Spring, you've got an idea, you launch a product, you take it to market, you sell everything. Fantastic, it's the summer, it's abundance, you're happy. So what do? Oh, let's go back to spring and start again, a different color, different marketing. And it just never ends. And that's how you end up with burnout, depression, a never-ending rat wheel thing, mouse wheel. Nature shows us other ways. Nature has autumn when the leaves fall. How do we transpose that? I work with my customers today to help them with their wintering. Autumn is a time to sit back and go, what did we just do there? What problems did we solve there? Did we say what we did that we would say? And what externalities has that created? Winter is about death. Difficult word to say in a conference, but some things have got to go. And they can only go if we take the time for them to die. And in death comes life. Spring again. And that's what we call radical innovation. Radical innovation, not just incremental innovation. Being stuck in that wheel there, spring, summer, is innovation gone mad. And that's the way we do business. That's the way the system works. All of a sudden, this conversation is difficult because I'm talking about something which isn't compatible with the way that you do business, the way we do business. But there's plenty of things that we can look at. I love this quote by Bucky. Now, he says that we never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Part of U theory is about prototyping and crystallizing something else. And that's the invitation. If you change everything overnight to go towards this, you probably lose your market. That's dangerous, right? But it's very important that as leaders today, we ask ourselves the question, what degenerative patterns can I break? You know, on the left-hand side of that curve I showed you, Conventional business is degenerative. It's exploiting natural resources with its mechanistic linear approach, putting pressure on employees all over the world. So what can we do? What can we say? It stops with me. Second example is this French company. You may know this product, pretty successful. This is a French company that turns over 325 million euros, and 20% of that turnover is made by that product there. And if for those of you who have had kids, you know that that is such a good thing to have in your bag when you go to the park, these lingettes. But the problem with these lingettes is not only are their fabrication isn't the prettiest of processes, but they end up in our rivers and seas and oceans. And this company are practicing demarketing, and they are actually stopping the sale of this product. That's 20% of their turnover. Goodbye, because it just doesn't make any sense for them anymore. That message to young people is a strong message. People want to work for Mustela. People are queuing up to work for them to help them replace that 20%. And I would argue that they'll probably do much more turnover in 3-4 years' time than they were doing before. So there's two things I like. One is colorful shirts. The other is wine. Wine is a very interesting product to work in because they understand what long-term means. This company approached me and they said, Charlie, we want to become regenerative in 3 years. I laughed. 3 years. What are we going to do in 3 years? We can barely get down to the subject, but we can certainly start. It's a fabulous company in Bordeaux called Chateau Palmer. And I salute their intention to become regenerative. Oh, awful slide, but bear with me. Now, they said we want to become regenerative in 3 years. So it's not just about regenerative viticulture, the way they make the wine. It's also about the way that they operate, the way that they are within a system. And if you know anything about winemaking, you can be as organic as you want. But if your neighbors are still conventional using pesticides, well, it doesn't make much sense. Roots go deep underground and air circulates freely. So it's all about taking the neighbors with you and having a more holistic approach. This is culture now, and it's going to take some time. So we use the 3 horizons. This is very different from short-term, medium-term, long-term. 3 horizons. Every single day, there are 3 horizons. It's just the intensity that changes. Horizon 1 is, you see, everything starts today, but the priority is on Horizon 1. Horizon 1 is about continuing to make money from the wine that they are making and selling today. But they know that the future is not in conventional wine sales. That's curve number 1 going down. There will be some things worth conserving. Horizon 2 is our transitional curve, which requires us to be robust and to integrate innovation. But we need to start today, because in 5 years' time, that's super important. Massive trend in wine is what we call the no-low. No alcohol, low alcohol. This is not really a thing, but it's going to be a thing. So they have to invest in it today. And the viable future, there is only a future of wine if the entire wine industry of Bordeaux go in the same direction. But this is going to take maybe a few generations. 3 horizons, they all start today. And as leaders, we can categorize them. Number 1 is resilience, just continuing to do what we can. We need to survive. I had a fascinating conversation last night at dinner about this, survival. That puts us in a posture of manager. We've got to get through this. Second horizon is about robustness. Business is changing. Supply chains are changing. Expectations are changing. We have to do things differently. This is about innovation. So we need the mindset of the entrepreneur in regenerative leadership. But we also have to have that visionary outlook for Horizon 3, which brings back life to an ecosystem. And we have what we call continued creation, which means if something disappears, we'll still continue to exist. Now, all of that, by the way, I'm deploying that. That is a thing, the three horizon model, and I work and use that, and shareholders buying it. And why are they buying it? Because they are reassured about Horizon 1. Very important. Now, what is your rarest resource? I would argue that it's perhaps your time. And this is what I'm looking at today, helping leaders with their time. I've created a place where I invite people to rewild their time. We don't need to rewild the natural environment. All it wants us to do is to go away, and it will rewild itself 200 years. Everything I'm talking about is a little bit scary. It's questioning who we are as a leader, who we are as a person, and what we do as a business. These are serious questions, and we need the right spaces and the right amount of time and the right quality of time. There's two types of time. Chronos time. Chronos time is the time saying, Charlie, you need to stop talking now. We need to move on. You need to get a train. Chronos is important. Otherwise, life doesn't work. But Kairos time is the time for opportunity. It's the time for joy. It's the time for dance. It's the time to stop and think for a minute about what we did there in order for things to emerge. Today, people say, Charlie, where do we start? Where do we start? Well, so maybe we start by stopping for an instant and think about what we've done. This is a living experiment. It may not look like it, but these are all CEOs of something or another. Businesses, NGOs, and academia. Last year, 5 days, 4 nights, we came together at my place under the umbrella of just turn up and see what happens. That is a hard sell. Argentina, India, Canada. People are coming in, they're investing. Just turn up and see what happens. But bring an intention about the future of your leadership. What happened was just amazing. Creating the right spaces, leaving space for emptiness is now becoming more important than ever. And we can do that in nature. Let's come to the end now. Usually a keynote speech ends with a, yeah, let's go, come on. I used to do that, marketing man. But now it's all about let go and to surrender to not knowing and to leave these spaces open to the Generation Z, which feel into this. Vivo Barefoot know that the designers of the future will not want to work with fossil fuels. So they've got rid of that problem. And they're attracting that talent. Is that the last slide? No, that's the last slide. So in order for that to happen, we're going to need to have this courage. And the courage, I love the word courage. You know, the French word for heart is cœur, the heart, which comes from this word courage. And the word courage means, it's defined from Latin, dare to speak the truth with your heart. And if you dare to speak the truth with your heart as a leader, create these spaces for emptiness, be inspired by the wisdom of nature, then there's every chance that you won't just maintain the best talent in the Balkans, but you'll start attracting the talent from elsewhere. Thank you for listening. I answered your question. Do you have more? Maybe there are some questions.
Golden one. Want to encourage да ги охрабрам. I have a mic. Доколко имате некакви прашања или нешто до Чарли, да му се обратите или да предложите нешто или да прашате нешто за вашите организации, за унапредување на вашите практики или не. Да, имаме прашање, да.
Hi everyone, my name is Alexandra Januska. I'm a professor at the Faculty of Economics. I'm coming from academia, a lot of talking about leadership. That's also one of my topics. And that's why I really congratulate you for the presentation. It was very insightful, very interesting. And I'm happy that I see a lot of faces from the business community hearing this. And actually, I want to come back to the question on the beginning as an advice to maybe to the business community. It is evidently that the workforce coming up is Generation Z, and that was addressed in the room, and we have only a few representatives of them, of course. And they're often labeled as being lazy, which is actually totally not true. They're only different. They're more purpose-driven than any other generation, and they will not take into consideration staying at a place where they don't feel valued and don't have a purpose. They're more purpose than any of other generations, because I'm on a daily basis in touch with them. So I hear a lot of business people complaining about the process of accreditation, keeping them in the company, and we have this big problem of brain drain in the country itself. So what would be, very short, like maybe top 3 things what maybe managers and leaders eventually could do to motivate young people to be in their companies? Thank you.
Maybe the business leaders need to be motivated by the young people. I'm learning so much from the young people. What can business leaders do to motivate young people? I'm going to answer in different ways. The first thing is to create spaces for deep listening. And not just deep listen, but to take on board what they're hearing and to implement that. Economics, right? I would also advise business leaders to review what they believe to be the sense of a business. So Milton Friedman told us that the purpose of the business is to sell products and services for a profit, okay? 20th century neoclassic economics, very simple. Now, if we can't change that mindset, it's going to be difficult to motivate Gen Z. So we're going to I would say that they have to review what they believe to be the sense of a business. And economics of mutuality gives us a different definition, which is the future purpose of a business is to find scalable and profitable solutions to solve world problems. This is much more exciting. And if it's incarnated within a company mission, that's how you motivate people. I'm very skeptic about people washing bullshit, posters on walls. If they feel it's not incarnated, in fact, it's really bad. If you say something and they know it's not that, this is even worse. So radical honesty is important. No company's perfect. Admit your failures. Admit this is how we've done things up until now, but the future isn't this. We don't know what the future is. So get them on board, create these safe spaces and write a collective vision within which they feel that they are listened to properly, and not one of those fake visions where the guys have already decided what the answer is and they just get people to do a few post-it notes. You know, that never works. So lots of different answers, not probably one you're wanting, but if I hear that question, how do you motivate Gen Zs? It's not with the traditional methods we're going to get there. And it's okay not to know. Thanks.
Yeah, question.
Question over here. Hi.
Yeah, one more. Can we?
Yeah.
The question is from our Zoom participants, from Katerina Mojanczewska. Thank you, Kate, for the question. Charlie, you mentioned courage as a driver for leaders to accept or to embrace the regenerative business idea. What drives this courage? It is openness to experiment and failure, tolerance to instability or mindset. What is it?
It's all of that wrapped up with love. It's the L word, and it's okay to talk about love. And we're going to have to. One of the statistics earlier talked about what 68% of people are not being themselves. But those people love people. Those people love humans. Those people love their children, and they want the best for the world. So it's everything you said, but wrapped up in love. And if we can't love the living systems and ourselves, then it's going to be tricky to to get our businesses to evolve. This is quite new, warm data, soft skills, but Beatles said it best, right? Love is all you need.
Is this regenerative leadership applicable? Do you think it's applicable to all the businesses?
Is regenerative yes, of course. Regenerative leadership is applicable to all businesses. What is going to change is where you are in your journey. And everybody has their own journey. If you go to India, start talking about regenerative business, they're still getting on the train from 30 years ago, and they want their middle class people, and they want their products and services. So it's going to be a bit later. So yes, it's applicable to all businesses, but the timing is going to be different. And I'll leave with that. That's very important. I'm becoming completely, this thing about we only have 3 years to save the world. I mean, I've stopped with that. I don't believe it's true, and I don't believe it's fair. We can't put that pressure on Gen Z. It's really not okay to say, well, you're the last chance. It's not okay. What we're talking about here is going to take time. So we have the time, but we don't have any time to lose. Get on the journey.
Thank you. I'm just trying to imagine how it will be in my culture, in my community, in my business. Okay, we'll talk later more.
We will talk later. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, questions? Hiya. Hi, saw you last night. I got home okay.
How was that?
Yeah. Was that your question?
Hi, Charlie, again. So I'm happy you were right home safe and sound, because 4 women were like helping him to find the hotel last night. Hey, thank you so much for today. It's amazing what you are doing, and I want to go back a little bit on the Gen Z. I'm working in civil society organization, so it's mostly voluntary work because it's 9 to 5. It's not 9 to 5 work, It's something that you feel and you do, and yes, of course, you have the projects and you go, whatever. What we have seen is that if we want to keep the Gen Zs, even my daughter, for example, at the organization and do something, and this, yes, they are smart, but we are like in your face. Now it's my break. So even you have something that you have to finish in that moment because you have to send it, it's like, no, now it's my break. See you in 30 minutes or in 1 hour. My question is for my daughter, in fact, because she is more business-oriented than an activist-oriented, as mother says. So she's hoping to have a business in this near future. She's studying administrative business. And I'm very curious, how can she or other Gen Z people who are planning for these businesses to start with regenerative from the start, from the scratch? Thank you so much.
Well, I think that they are. That's what I'm observing is the big trouble I have today is with companies which are well established. But if we were to start a company today, it's so much easier, let's say. How is our future activity going to impact living systems positively? How can we enter into symbiose with nature? So it's a great advantage. It's a great opportunity. However, it's very little taught at the moment by academia. I don't know if you're teaching that, but it's just becoming a thing. So I would suggest that they visit Regenerators Academy, which is an online thing. I'm a scholar of that, and now I'm helping them, which is a great place to start. I have so much hope with this future generation. You can see them coming out of school with already the right mindset, because regenerative leadership is not a thing. It's a spirit, and it's an approach, and it's a way of being. And we have so much more to learn from them than they have to us. And I wouldn't even advise them on that. I'd just say, just do it. Just go for it. And then we pay attention to what they're doing more than the other way around. Yeah. Thanks. One more from the lady over here.
And because the previous wasn't from me, it was from Kate. This one's from me. How do we unlearn? Because you spoke about Gen Z, but what about us, the old guys?
I love this.
How can we unlearn things, and how can we like start thinking this way?
Yeah, how do we unlearn? I mean, unlearning should be, there should be an MBA in this right now. Unlearning, de-learning. Mustela is a great example. There was a picture of someone called, I can't remember, Marguerite. She is practicing demarketing, you know, selling less product deliberately, selling it off super low. How am I de-learning? It's difficult and it's long, and it comes back to rewilding your time. It's safe spaces, deconstructing, and it's tough because if you're 45 and you did a business degree and then an MBA, and then you work for 20 years in industry to get to that point, and then all of a sudden you're going, oh, that's not what it is. Wow, that's super tough. So you need people, you need community, you need coaching, you need to have the chance to talk about that, and to get someone like Neshko to talk to you about letting go to let come. And that brings us back to you theory again. Things have got to die, and you theory is very good for that. And then we get to a point of presence, and then we can let more things come. It's not an easy thing to de-learn because you have to question, in some cases, your entire existence. It's a long process. Therefore, create spaces, open dialogue, etc. Everything I said. We should all de-learn. De-learning. MBA and de-learning for me, please. Are we good?
Yeah, it feels scary, yeah. Because it feels.
It is scary.
Because I don't know, it changes your identity probably, right? You know something for yourself.
That's what
You know.
Nimet was talking about earlier on. Yeah, you're questioning your values, the way you were brought up, your education, your value, and your professional capacity. But these are the things that we need to do if we are to provide Generation Z and our children and our children's children what is necessary to survive in business, which is a healthy, livable planet. If it's not comfortable, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's good.
Comfort means business as usual, and we know it's not taking us in the right direction.
Yeah, super. Thanks. Thanks. One.
Yeah, sure. There's a mic just behind you.
Yes, thank you. I just want to have one more question regarding what are your expectations, or what we can as leaders expect from the alpha generation, which will be on the market in how much, 7 years? And then we will have X, Y, Z, and alpha working all together. So in your opinion, what can we expect from alpha?
Wow. I think the English word is a clusterfuck, which is not a really nice word, but it's going to be chaotic. I'll answer in a different way, okay? I have 3 teenagers. And from the eldest to the youngest, it's completely different. So the alphas are already there. I'm going to say something else. You said, what are my expectations? My expectations are all about passing over responsibility earlier than later. That's what's important here. Because from what I observe, the solutions are there, the ideas are there, the budgets are there. What's getting in the way? Us. We're getting in the way. Our mindsets are getting in the way. So all of a sudden, it's about perhaps the future of our generation. I say our, I'm 49, okay, is to coach and mentor them, to give them an understanding, because the one thing they don't have is experience. So we can pass on that experience. Passing over the responsibility too early to those who already have a better idea of what the future is, because it's their future. And then once again, we come back to letting go. So it's not about managing them. It's more about giving them the responsibility to run with it. Just like we do when we're parents and the kids take that bike for the first time without stabilizers. Why don't we just transpose that to the business world? Letting go. And Francesca, there's a lady back there who's eager to ask a question. Hi.
Hi, I'm Anita. I'm HR from Kosovo. In my experience, I used to work in banking in an IT company with very young people and also now in retail. For me as an HR, it was the same challenge regarding to the soft skills in different categories and in different ages, which I think it's an issue that we have as people and we have to work on it. I'm so curious to know about your experience with CEOs, actually how you made them reflect, because this is the biggest challenge, even just to make the leaders reflect and say, aha, okay, maybe I have to change. Maybe my way of working or my leadership is influencing people, because it's really hard. We are part of HR, we really understand this part. It's really hard to make leaders see their way and start to reflect also on their lifestyle and also on their way of leadership. So I'm so curious to know how they came to that point to reflect.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is the question. But I will start with a question that I say to all HR people. So humans are resources, are they? Just throw that out there. We need to stop saying human resources. People. So all CEOs, in my experience, understand what we're talking about. But they have a mandate. And that mandate is invariably linked to financial performance. So that's the problem. That's the problem. I had to leave Decathlon, not because Decathlon didn't understand what I was talking about, but because Decathlon CEO has to answer to a board of shareholders. So we're going to go up a level now. And that board of shareholders also has a mandate, right, to bring that money back in to the global financial system. So now we can start thinking about the bigger problem. So working with CEOs, what I see is really working is family businesses. Family businesses, they seem to get it. They come from somewhere and they want to pass that on to somewhere. These guys I can work with, or these guys want to work with me. Stock exchange CEOs, I haven't seen one yet. And I won't, because what I'm talking about is anti-capitalist, and it's not what they are required to do. So this comes back to, well, what are we requiring CEOs to do? And it goes above and beyond the triple bottom line, right? But it does. I mean, and a lot of it is about social status. If you're a CEO, then you've got 3 houses, 8 cars, 4 holidays, very happy family. You're going to put that at jeopardy because some English guy in a shirt talks about trees? No, no, this is a long, long process. And it does require them to question who they are and their purpose in this world, which is why we need time. We need to rewild our time. We need these spaces, and we need more and more people working in community. Those guys that I showed you, I didn't do much work because they did the work between themselves, because they all share the same problem, which is their mandate. So when we start measuring what matters, then we can have a different conversation. Right now, the success is with small to medium-sized companies and with family-owned businesses. It's a tough question. I'll probably spend the rest of my life on it, and I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I'll let you know. Right, I think we're over time. No?
Just one more question.
Okay, I'm happy. I can talk all day.
Hi, Charlie.
Hey.
You talk about different perceptions of time, and you mentioned also the death.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask you about lifespan time. I mean, there's this odd distribution of our life that is more or less 1/3 of our life to prepare ourselves to have a job good enough to pay a mortgage, to buy a car, maybe to have children or a pet, because now youngsters used to have more pets than children, and then working as much, creating the family, paying all the credits, etc. And then 1/3 of our life having memories of the time that we were so busy and not knowing to do with our life. Then this change in the perception, how this would affect this wrong distribution of lifespan.
Wow. How many hours for that one? I don't know what to say. What I will say is this: at the farm where I live, I've got this great big wooden, it's huge. It's a wooden doors, 4 meters by 3 meters, old Flemish doors. And I've made it a shrine for retirement. And the message is, why are you working to get to this point where you have time to be who you are? And that's what I'm trying to get people to understand. Why can't we be children forever? You know, so this is a deep question, and I'm going to follow my own advice of uncertainty and say, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. But yet reviewing the schema of life, you're born, you learn, you go to studies, you work, you have time off, and then you die. Why? We could do something else, right? But death is a very important part of life. And the more that we can acknowledge that things must die, like a business model which is creating negative externalities, the more we can truly live.
No, I'm mentioning this because in the audience, there are many questions about the next generation that will enter into the workforce, etc.
Sure.
Instead of thinking on the mixture of generations that can contribute.
Yeah. If I had several hours more, we could talk about what we call the 17 strands of DNA for regenerative leadership, which is about design, culture, and being. We have to change the way that we are in business as well by integrating things like poetry, music, dance, silence, which is what you do in the cultural world, naturally. Why don't do that in a business? Yeah, going off on one there, but great question. Are we good? We're good. Good. Thank you.